Welcome everyone to Nitro Maniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited. I'm Kellen Nitro. Again, joining me on the line, TML, Tyler. How you doing, man?
I am not bad at all.
Cool. As we said in the last video, we wanted to kind of break down AEW Dynamite again, even though I've done so on the channel before, but I welcome Tyler's opinion. I got him on the line here, and he said that he wanted to break it down, so you know what? Let's pull a DX and break it down. Yeah, AEW Dynamite.
I was totally expecting the theme song, and it didn't happen. But you know what? We're gonna move on.
So, anyways, there we go. It's going to be a fun little discussion here on AEW because I think your opinion of the show differs from my show, and my opinion of the show, and this differs, or this doesn't differ, but this just comes from the discussion at the end of the Hell in a Cell, Nitro's take, where I said that AEW Dynamite was my favorite premiere of last week, and you were amazed by that. So I will go ahead and state, for those who didn't watch, that Tyler had stated that SmackDown was his favorite premiere. I said AEW Dynamite, and I guess I'll ask you, where do you put AEW's premiere in the whole scheme of things that happened over the last wrestling week?
They took the bronze. They were third place for me.
Okay. So NXT getting the second then, I guess?
Absolutely.
Okay, with the PR?
Yep, in a head-to-head, I'm going to watch NXT over AEW.
Okay. Explain.
What they did with NXT show, it was a wrestling show. I enjoyed it. I mean, it was out of order. The fact that they put their main event first and then just kind of followed up with other matches, that was a bit strange. But I liked the smaller venue. I liked the crowd that was completely into it and knew exactly what was going on and reacted to everything. I liked the matches. I liked the story that they set up by the end of it. I liked the story they were setting up in the beginning of it. It was well done from top to bottom. It is the best of what WWE has to offer, even though it's their quote-unquote developmental league. That being said, in contrast, so let's break it down over to AEW.
Break it down.
Well, I mean, you start off this you start off the show and you've got Cody Rhodes, the owner, I guess, of AEW, and he's going up against Sammy Kuvera. I have not watched a lot of AEW in their previous pay-per-views that they've done.
How many AEW offerings did you watch since, let's say, Double or Nothing, back in what was it, May? Yeah, because they've had a couple of free live shows during the summer and that stuff that they were doing on Bleacher Report and everything.
Okay, I can honestly say I have not watched an entire show. Everything that I've seen from AEW has been small YouTube clips here and there.
Okay, fair enough.
So I'm very, very fresh to the product. So they come out and they do this little package about who this Sammy Guevara person is and then going up against Cody. And it's like, okay, so they kind of built a match of the owner who's maybe taking on a bit too much against this young up-and-comer. Except he comes out in this panda head. He looks like a 12-year-old with the size of a 12-year-old. And I'm like, who is this jabroni? And why are you the opening... Why are you the opening wrestler against Cody Rhodes, who I actually know of, and who's now dyed his hair blonde so he looks like his father? I'm like, what is happening?
Well,
why is this the opener?
Yeah, Cody was doing the blonde hair gimmick back in Ring of Honor as well, too, for a time. And it's a thing that he goes through once in a while. I don't understand why, but whatever. But
it's the family resemblance thing. It is to look like Dusty, and I do like it.
Sure, that's fair ball. Sorry, him being involved in the main event, I think storyline wise was explained to me how I interpreted it as Guevara could be the kind of the guy that could, like, the dark horse that could spoil everything going into this premiere that happened last week, because Cody ended up, has the title match with Jericho at Full Gear, which is November 9th, and Cody had put up the title match in this match where he said if he can't beat Sammy Guevara, he doesn't want to go and face Jericho for the AEW title, that he would rather, give that title opportunity to somebody else, and Sammy would have it then, if that was the case. So that's essentially what it was. The opening contest, on Dynamite was essentially a number one contendership for the AEW title. And both guys' records, because wins and losses matter in AEW, I should say. There's no root beer here. We're not going for teen burgers, everybody. Although that is a great idea, but I think it's a little late in the night for that. The whole thing is that Cody and Kuvera going head to head is, again, essentially a number one contendership match for the AEW title, and winner gets Jericho at Full Gear on November 9th, and they Tony a couple times during the contest reiterated that and that stuff. And again, because of the records, both their records were, if not identical, I think maybe similar, because Kuvera, I believe, beat Kip Sabian and beat somebody else, was involved on a winning team or something like that kind of added to like the 2-0 record that he's got. And then Cody, of course, beat Dustin, and then at Double or Nothing, and I think has one other win as well in AEW over the summer that would equate to a 2-0 record. So it was a battle of two 2-0 records going head to head of each other for number one contendership. That's what it was.
But even that explanation, it's like, why would Sammy Guevara get a title shot? He looks like a 12-year-old.
He has a young buck.
No one's going to take that seriously, that he's going to go for a championship.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the match itself, I'm going to get is like, okay, he does some nice flippity-floppity stuff. Cool. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't always make sense. I hate that move where he does a moonsault, lands on his feet, does another moonsault which misses from his feet, and then does a shooting star to land it. So Cody's supposed to roll out of the way for the first moonsault and then position for a shooting star? What is the logic in that?
Yeah, that's kind of still that independent wrestling glitz where guys get all your stuff in. I think that AEW obviously is going to try and cater towards versus Vince's system, which every move has to tell a little bit of the story, and there's certain moves that you use to sell that part of the story building up to the climax, right? So that's... But
to me, it makes no logical sense. I'm like, is Cody that dumb that he's just going to lay there and let a guy do a shooting star after rolling out of the way of a moonsault? Like, what is wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
And another thing with Cody was I noticed that he doesn't connect. It was really bothering me. Like when he does the drop down and the slap to the face, like what his was. He did that to Sammy, and I'm like, he missed that by a country mile.
Yeah.
And then even his finisher, where he does the bounce off the ropes into the kick, he missed that completely. I'm like, you're supposed to be like the top guy at this company. You're the owner-ish. Like, why? You got to come better than that.
Well, I think it's also been explained too that while Cody may be the quote unquote top guy in power at AEW, I think they've done a great enough job in setting up stuff during the spring and the summer and the fall to explain that, hey, Cody's the top guy, but there are wrestlers on this roster that can beat Cody and are better than Cody right now in their point in their career. Like, here's the thing. When they feuded, Kenny Omega was insanely better than Cody by a country mile in wrestling ability and that stuff, and you name it. And I think that's still the case. I still, if I had to pick a guy that would give me a match of the year candidate, I would take Kenny Omega over Cody Rhodes. John Moxley, right now at this point in the game, is a guy that I would rank higher on my roster if I had it than Cody Rhodes. Cody right now is I'd say lower main event, upper middle card type guy. He's a guy that you could probably slide into a main event here and there, and it would be believable, but you don't want him main eventing every show. I think you'd want him, in the middle at some cards and that stuff and everything, and I think AEW in itself has done a decent job of doing that, at least throughout the year here and everything, because back at Double or Nothing, Cody and Dustin were midway through the card. They were maybe the third or fourth match in. And, this one here, they wanted something, and it's ratings again, too, because they knew that WWE was going to hit them with something big. Now, they didn't think that they were going to hit them with Riddle and Cole for an NXT title match in a match of the year candidate. I will give NXT that they have a match of the year candidate right there in the first 20 minutes of that show. If you haven't seen it, go to the network, go check it out, watch it. But you know, we're trying to already dissect strategies of war, you know, between two companies, and you know they're going to do little quirk things to try to undermine or show that their stuff is better. So it's an interesting. It's very.
And again,
but anyway,
even in that explanation, now Cody looks like a jabroni too. It's like, why are either of these guys going up for a championship?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't it be Kenny Omega or Jon Moxley going up for the championship? Why is it Cody? If Cody has to beat this jobber in order to get a championship match, who can be beaten by a jobber apparently,
well,
then why does he deserve it in the first place?
Okay, using that logic, why was Riddle the number one contender for Cole's NXT championship?
Because he had won a series of matches consecutively, more than two. A 2-0 record is like, that's the beginning of the season.
Okay. I'll give it to that. That stuff. I thought that him and Killian Dane may have worked maybe once or twice before. I didn't know that was like a series of matches, you know, prior to it and that stuff. So, but if that's what they were building up throughout the summer and that stuff, I'll give them that. That's it. But that's the, you know, you know, you can draw parallels between the two shows, and you can also draw differences in what they were doing as well too. But it's, you know,
but for me, as we're finding out, it's a lot deeper than we thought.
I mean, deeper than we thought. Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
And on your end of it is like that was a great opening, and for me, that was a what the hell is this?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, it's all in the eye of the beholder, I guess, and that's if wrestling is subjective, you know. I often thought, and this would be a Heat getting T-shirt to do or something like that, but I often thought about looking into getting like hashtag wrestling is wrestling T-shirts done, and then just list on the back of the T-shirt every single subgenre of wrestling there is, like, you know, Joshi, Deathmatch, Puro Resu, North American Sports Entertainment, old school territory, whatever, blah 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 blah, like that, and just wear that around at shows, because I know for sure that would just blow a lot of fans' minds out of the. It's like, what, your subject in wrestling is not wrestling, man. It's like, you know, it's like rock music. There's so many different bands, right? So. But
yeah, that's a good parallel. That's a good parallel you just put there. So, what was the next match after the Cody thing, or the next segment?
I'm trying to remember now off the top of my head. I believe what they did was the beatdown from Jericho. So Jericho ran in. Kuvera.
They cut the break during that, didn't they?
They cut the break after the code breaker, and then they came back, and Jericho was still beating the crap out of Cody on the outside, and then they kind of did a cold transition out of that once they separated the two and whisked Jericho to the back and everything, and they had Cody whisked out of the arena with Brandy to Brandon Cutler and MJF.
Right.
Which essentially I'll admit that I'll admit that it was a Cutler at this point of his career is a carpenter or I don't want to say job guy, but he's a guy that not necessarily you're going to put in the main event scene or anything like that, but he's an opening match. You know, it's too mean to call him a job guy, but he's an opening match guy, and he's a utility guy, you know, to make MJF look good. That entire segment was to make MJF look good on national TV, which it did.
But did it? My whole thing is like with this MJF guy, I think you had to know him a little bit beforehand, before like just never seeing the product and seeing this guy come out and he's like, okay, so this is the bad guy. And he's going to beat up a guy who looks like he shouldn't be there in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, that's...
like he looks like it. You're right. He's a ring technician guy, like he's a utility guy, but it comes across as he's a jobber. That's what it comes across as to the viewer. That's what it came across as to me. I'm like, is this a real wrestler guy? They just put him in the ring to make this bad guy look good.
I mean, in the context of introducing MJF to the casual fan that you're trying to get with the TNT program and, you know, explain his character and everything, I thought it did a great job. It's like, okay, this guy, and then, you know, the sub storyline that this guy is in or is posing right now as Cody's best friend, you know, while, you know, Cody behind Cody's back and that stuff is just going out there and you know, just basically acting like an asshole to everybody. That's, you know, that's what they've been trying to convey with MJF as his role at this point, you know, and they're banking on MJF as being one of the next guys in AEW over the next 3 to 5 years to be a main event guy, you know, maybe 3 or 5 years down the line. He's not there yet, but, you know, that's the whole deal, which compared to what NXT and WWE were doing at about the same time, is there was a transition from that into Io Shirai and Mia Yim, was it not? I think the second match?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Yeah. Which you could kind of, that was a match where Io went over, and you're trying to establish Io's heel character again.
And it was also a cool down match coming off of a main event to open the whole show.
Okay, and one would argue that Cutler MJF was probably the same deal. I would say it's like in a cool down thing, except you have a prospect that a lot of people wanted to see. Mind you, on NXT there was a prospect that you wanted to see there too. So with Io,
now that,
right? So
so I think this is why we already have a very different view of the show of Dynamite, is because you went into it with the history of all the shows previous that had built into the TV show that they had done.
Right.
I had not. Okay. This is my introduction to AEW.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I can. Okay.
So it's like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? Why does this matter? And I don't think it was thoroughly enough explained to a viewer who had never seen the show before. Mm-hmm. I'm like, who's this MJF guy? Because everything that you had mentioned was not mentioned in the program. Yeah. About him being Cody's best friend and the behind the scenes, and
all that stuff's readily available through like the Being the Elite YouTube, and you know, all the free shows that they did during the summer and everything, and you know, just following along on that, even on social media, the tweets that they do and everything like that, with the arcs that they're starting to build for these guys and everything. So, but you know, as it is, and as it always has been with NXT. So you know, it's you know, like I said, there are similarities here. There are differences too. So, yeah.
So after that segment with MJF, By the way, that commentary team, Shivani's okay. It still reminds me a bit too much of WCW. Yep. Jim Ross is Jim Ross. He's not excited as he used to be, but he's still Jim Ross.
Okay.
Who's this guy with a mask? He's awful.
Excalibur? Excalibur has been a play-by-play guy for Pro Wrestling Girl on the West Coast and actually probably maybe about 5 or 7 other indies and different indie organizations, you know, across America and that stuff since the mid-2000s or so and everything like that. He used to be a wrestler with PWG, and I think he found his niche as a commentator, and he's a longtime friend and confidant of the Young Bucks as well, so I think that definitely helps in him getting the gig. But I honestly didn't mind the 3 of them on the TV show. I felt that Excalibur works well in like that Mike Tenay role where he explains kind of the back history of everything and whatever. Tony's there, ironically, as I don't want to say the Bobby the Brain Heenan role, but kind of that the third man, kind of, you know, chiming in from time to time. And Jim Ross is almost a color guy now at this point. I think they saw what Ross was doing with New Japan Pro Wrestling over the past couple of years. They'd realized that he can't be the lead announcer anymore. He can't be the lead dog. But if you put him in a group, I think we could probably work with him.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, he's not the lead guy anymore. He's going to be a color guy. Schiavone, as Jericho used to call him. He's there to put in a little 2 cents every now and then as well.
Isn't it
But
ironic
no,
that
man.
they're all with the same company again? 20 years on, and they're back with the same, or not the same company, but back under similar pretenses on the same network, no less, I guess.
Yeah, that's karma or something. I don't know what, but that is pretty crazy.
Something cyclical about that, but anyway.
Cyclical, that's a great word for it. Excalibur, the resume you just gave out does not match what I saw and heard on that show. He was stuttering, he was stopping, he was forgetting things. I was bewildered. I was like, who is this guy? Get him off the air. They need somebody better.
It's something where, I would urge you to maybe take a look at the free shows that came out during the summer. They're on Bleacher Report Live. You go in there, you sign up for a free account. They're under the free account. They're of Fighter Fest and Fight for the Fallen, which were the two kind of free shows that they did that were, I guess, test cards to, test things out under a feature-length thing that they would be doing and what they needed to work on and what they, kind of prior to TV and that stuff. Because, to go and do this, you need to run a bunch of test events prior to generate buzz a little bit and everything and whatever. So those two events, I believe, are archived for free on Bleacher Report, and so you can just watch them whenever on demand or anything like that. And that's the one. Fighter Fest is the one where Cody Rhodes gets clocked in the head with the chair from Sean Spears. And the second one is the charity event that they did for gun violence in Jacksonville. And that's the one with Omega and SEMA, I think, is one of the attraction matches and that stuff. And those ones are a lot of fun to watch. They were both great shows this year to watch for sure. They were definitely better than anything on the WWE main roster. So there we go. As we had just wrapped watching probably the worst pay-per-view of the year here as we recorded this tonight, I can assure you that both those shows were better than Hell in a Cell. So hey, there we go.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And they were introducing on either one or the other shows Golden Boy. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him or anything like that, but he was The Rock's announcer for a lot of The Rock's involvement in MMA and boxing and that stuff on HBO and everything. But his big thing is he is one of the lead announcers for esports and Overwatch and a whole bunch of stuff. But he knows his wrestling. And so he was in with JR and Excalibur, I think, on both those shows. And he did a great job as well. So I'm not sure where Golden Boy fits into the whole realm of what they're going to do with the announcers and that stuff. But he's a young enough guy that I think that it might be on the radar that maybe 1 or 2 years down the line when JR finally decides to hang it up or something like that, they might bring this guy in and have Excalibur and Golden Boy work. And they were really good. But Excalibur, he's not my favorite announcer. Morrow's my favorite announcer. I love watching Morrow Ranell work and how he attacks things and announces things and everything like that. I think it's great. Kevin Kelly,
who was on NXT and who was right, but for, like you just mentioned, Mauro Ranallo. I mean, he was over there on NXT at the same time as AEW was on, and that was a major difference. Was the quality in the commentary that Mauro was doing compared to whatever Excalibur was doing. To me, that was atrocious. I don't know if it was the jitters or he just wasn't ready for national TV.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. NXT's got the more polished booth right now. Yes, absolutely. Even with Beth Phoenix as your third person, they got the most polished booth. So there you go.
Oh man, you just reminded me of something from AEW.
Okay.
That women's match. What was that girl doing on commentary?
Britt Baker? So I don't understand.
What was she doing?
Yeah, I don't understand why they brought her out, honestly, for commentary purposes, other than the fact that this is potentially somebody who could be the next top contender for the women's championship for the winner of this thing. That's what I thought. So I think that maybe this week or next week we'll get some more explanation behind it, and we'll find out that she's probably the contender for Riho's women's title coming up at Full Gear or something like that. And that's probably what they're going to build off of that. But that's yeah, I could totally see that. Unfortunately,
which is fine. I mean,
yeah.
you're building a new contender for the brand new championship, but
Yeah.
she did nothing on
No,
commentary.
she
She
said like
wasn't.
two or three words or something like that or anything. They could have easily just had her sit in the VIP lounge or something like that, watching a monitor, and just cut back to her a couple times nodding, and it would have been sufficed enough. And then maybe at the end of the match, maybe just give like a silent, like maybe like a not loud golf clap or something, and then just get up and leave or something. That could have
Is
worked.
she a heel or a face?
She's a face right now under the current alignment, unless she'll do something. Watch, I'll literally put this video up this week, and then on Wednesday they'll do something that'll turn her heel or something like that on Wednesday's show or whatever.
If she was a heel, it would have made sense.
Yeah.
If she was a heel, it would have made sense, and like to that idea, she could have just sat at the ring and observed the match, and the commentators being like, okay, I guess she's going to watch right from ringside.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when Riho gets attacked again by Nyla, she goes up to the edge of the ring, like she's going to help, puts her hand on the rope, and then lets go and just walks away and says, "Nope, that's your fight."
Yeah.
And then she just comes off as the next heel.
I could see that too.
But don't put her on commentary to say nothing. That was ridiculous.
Not a fan of people just to come in and do. They did the same thing. They did the same thing last year at All In, if you remember correctly, during the women's match. There, the four-way women's match with Tessa and Chelsea Green, because Britt Baker was part of that as well. At All In last year, they did the same thing with Tenille Dashwood and Mandy Leon. Okay,
and one of them was just on commentary?
They both were on commentary. It was a four-man booth.
Oh, my goodness.
And they had Ian Riccoboni and Excalibur do the call with Tenille Dashwood and Mandy Leon kind of just stepping over top of each other during that match, trying to call and everything like that. The women's match was great. The commentary for the women's match, though, sucked. So I get what you're saying there. Yes, absolutely. But, that's another thing, too, is that NXT from time to time will, and even WWE programming has been, I guess guilty of that in the past too, and that's where they'll bring a wrestler in or a couple wrestlers in on commentary and do that. I mean, like, how many times has the New Day sat in on commentary on SmackDown for matches? They've had their own commentary.
But the New Day's hilarious.
That's true.
But the New Day's hilarious. They're entertaining. They're entertaining.
You got a point.
Yeah. This girl did nothing. I don't know anything more about her after she's finished. I didn't care about her, and that was just awful.
Yeah.
And then the match itself. A lot of people apparently like this match. I didn't get it.
I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. I thought it was passable for a TV match, but I didn't think it was anything special. I was very suspect at the selection of Rose's opponent in that. I didn't think that they did a great enough job with the amount of female talent they have coming into this thing of really fleshing out something, because here's the inherent flaw with AEW's title selection process of these matches that they did. Double or nothing. You have the winner of the Battle Royal take on a winner of a singles match, albeit it's a high-profile singles match and it was your main event. But what is the logic between having Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho automatically anointed as, okay, this is 1A, 1B for one of the slots for the AEW Championship match at All Out in September, whereas the other winner has to fight through 19 other guys in a weird kind of Royal Rumble-y, but not really Royal Rumble Royal Casino Battle poker chip fight.
Yes, exactly. Whatever that was.
Exactly. Where Hangman Page ends up the victor and whatever, and we actually get a really interesting match that's a main event of a pay-per-view later on. So that worked out great. At All Out itself, you had Nyla Rose play the Beast card throughout the entire Rumble, toss out everybody, ends up winning the Battle Royal, and then Hikaru Shida and Riho go one-on-one later on in the night, and I'm like, okay, they're two of the best Japanese women competitors that you can find right now on the indies anywhere. But what anoints them to be 1A, 1B that gets the solo out of it and that stuff. If anything, it should have been Britt Baker versus B. Priestley in that match because they were building on something at Fight for the Fallen. They actually had a rivalry start up. And so I thought that was it. But instead, they were kind of just goofing around in the Battle Royal with storyline.
Yeah, and then when you got down to the actual match, you basically have a dead ringer for Nia Jax and just as green.
Yeah.
This Nyla Rose person.
Yeah.
Against a girl who's, and we talked about this a little bit about at Hell in the Cell, is the size difference between two competitors.
Yes.
They're trying to present this whole we're a real sport type of wrestling. So I guess, but weight classes don't matter because you have an she looks like she's 80 pounds, Rio.
Oh, yeah.
Going up against a girl who probably looks 200 plus pounds.
Yep.
And she's trying to give her an Irish whip. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Girl who's
what is your logic?
Girl who is legit 6 feet versus a competitor that's maybe, I don't know, 5'2". If that, 5'1".
Had to have been.
Yeah.
Had to have been.
Yeah.
It looked like a child against a monster.
Yeah. And again,
for some reason, the child is trying to do an Irish whip. I'm like, are you not smart enough to know you can't do that?
And, it's David versus Goliath, but there we go. It's, at the end of the day.
Yeah, but David had a weapon.
David had a foreign object, right? Yeah, that's the old joke. Yeah, David used
exactly.
a foreign object. So.
Exactly. This was like, it didn't make sense visually. It didn't make sense in like physics. Like it just didn't work for me. No. And this Nyla Rose girl is so green. She was making mistakes left, right, and center.
And that was going head to head against Lorray and Baszler at that point?
Which was a good match. They told a good story.
Yeah, that was a good story. Again.
So I'm saying one women's match was definitely better than the other.
The only knock that I'll give on that one, and I'm just saying as a Lorray fan and that stuff, is even though that was it, it's not the most original matchup with the roster that they have that they could have done between that. And the problem is Baszler as champion right now is kind of getting a little repetitive, in my opinion. Like, it's like, okay, well, it doesn't matter who they throw at her. She's going to walk out with the belt each time. It's kind of...
Well, they're building her like Brock Lesnar.
Well, they're building her like Asuka. That's the thing. So, unless you're bringing Asuka back into the fold to be, to get an NXT run.
I could see them doing that with Ember Moon. I could see them doing that with Ember Moon because they haven't figured out what she is or what she does on SmackDown. So maybe sending her back to NXT to take on a Baszler would make sense.
Okay. Yeah.
But going back to the AEW thing, I mean, that women's match, like, that's your champion. Someone that looks like she can get broken in half by just stepping wrong. Like, it's not a good visual. It's not a good look.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree that the selection of the champion is rather
suspect.
Yeah, bizarre and suspect. It's like that for the women's division. It's kind of weird. So, but we'll see. Maybe her reign is not very long. I mean, like, how long did T.J. Perkins hold the cruiserweight title after he won it? I don't think it was very long.
We don't have to talk about TJP. That was that was such a heartbreaker what they did to that guy.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. Well, thankfully he made his way back to Impact, and it looks like that he's reclaiming himself a bit there. He's a big time part of their cards now. What Impact's got, so that's good.
But Impact has fallen so far, they're not even in the picture anymore. AEW has completely taken their spot.
That's a completely different video for another day.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So next up on the card, was that where they had the Lucha Underground guys take on this tag team I didn't know in a little confrontation on top of the stage?
No, that was earlier on in the card, but yeah, I get what you're saying. They were hyping the tag team title tournament, and you had a vignette from STU, which is Daniels, Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky, straight from over the past couple years in Ring of Honor. They were Ring of Honor guys, and now they're with AEW. And they took on but the confrontation was between them and Ray Phoenix and Pentagon Jr., Lucha Brothers, right? From Lucha Underground. So
is he allowed to be Pentagon Jr. or is he like the weird? Okay, good.
Yes, he's allowed to use Pentagon Jr. now. The whole deal with what was it? It was a Mexican promotion. Was it CMLL or was it Lucha Underground itself?
I think it's AAA. I think it's AAA.
Well, they have an agreement with AAA, so
Oh, okay, good,
They
good,
do,
good.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because the triple tag belts were on the line at Double or Nothing, and then they were on the line again at All Out.
So again, as the casual fan, I do know who the Lucha Underground guys are because that was a TV show,
Right.
and I recognize them. And he did the whole Zero Merdo thing, and I was like, okay, cool. I know that guy.
Yes, yes, yes.
I don't know who the other three guys are. I'm like, who? Did Virgil have a son? Who is this?
And see, that's where the casual fan would go to war with the hardcore fan, because the hardcore fan would know all about Christopher Daniels from TNA and Christopher Daniels from Ring of Honor and all the stuff that he was doing. The same guy who was the Fallen Angel years ago in TNA and in Ring of Honor and the X Division and everything like that. And then, of course, Frankie Kazarian was a longtime running partner of Daniels, and then Scorpio Sky was a longtime running partner of Kazarian. So, I mean, like, that's where the hardcore fan would butt heads with the casual fan with that. And that's where you get the Twitter beefs, and that's where you get all the drama online, right? So,
and that's where we are right now, because me watching the show as the casual fan, I'm like, I don't know these guys. I kind of know these guys. What is happening? Why do I care? I guess I don't. Next.
And they're trying to explain it to you that they're going to meet in the first round of the tag team tournament, and that's what they're hyping, right? So.
Yeah. So then after that, I believe was Hangman Page against
Pac, Neville.
Oh man, did that slow down the show to a crawl? I don't know. They did. Like, I don't know why they didn't go full tilt. They kind of they slowed the match down, and it was slow and a lot of laying around.
Well, I think they were filling time, honestly. I think that they were actually a little bit ahead of time on the show, so they had to kind of,
but it showed
a little bit and everything like that. But yeah, there was times there were in that match where they were kind of a little slow and everything like that. The only thing I really found wrong with that match was I didn't like the finish of it. I thought it was kind of hokey with the ref being turned and then the low blow and then Pac getting the win, but Pac still runs his undefeated record up in AEW again and again. Records matter here, so I'm doing air quotes. You can't see me do air quotes, but I'm doing air quotes. Records matter here, and then they go forward, right? But
my problem is I know who Pac is because he was on WWE. I expect so much more energy out of the guy, and that just fell so short. And I guess as you're saying, you're probably just trying to fill some time.
And also,
but
it's a different character that he's trying to explain too. Pac's got a different character now than what he had in WWE. In WWE, we had just started seeing it before he left WWE. He was this benevolent, miserable cruiserweight, right? So, or not benevolent, but completely violent, I guess. Miserable.
But might I suggest making yourself boring is not a good character change. Just for the sake of being different. You always want to be entertaining no matter what you do. You can't be known as the boring guy because people turn off the boring guy.
The Red Arrow finisher he uses is anything but boring. Like, I mean, that's a head-turning moment. That
is true, but the majority of the match, it just he slows it so far down. Also, second shooting star, standing shooting star of the night from this time from Hangman Page. I'm like, when did this become a commonplace thing?
The buckshot lariat that Page uses too has got a little bit of show business on it too, with the whole flip over the ropes and then the clothesline on it. It's a little bit. It's the old Owen Hart, why do you have to do a backflip before you hit the guy type thing,
Exactly.
Sense, but
I do need to go back to something because I just remembered it.
Okay.
The end of the Cody and Sam Guevara match.
Okay.
They do false finish. They do another false finish. They do moves that should probably kill each other.
Yeah.
And he wins with a roll-up? He wins with a roll-up!
But that's something I'll agree with you with right now, is that is the knock against independent wrestling. You go to any independent card out there, they'll do the same thing in any match. Like that. Because there's no structure. there's no structure in independent wrestling. It's just go out there and do,
I think that's my fundamental problem that I'm having right now buying into AEW, is that they're trying to promote it as this is pro wrestling, a sport, the sport of pro wrestling, and then they do a bunch of hokey, phony things. They do these moves that should kill each other, like a reverse suplex from the top rope, kicks out at 2, but then he wins with a roll-up. I don't get it.
I mean,
that one was just beyond me.
Here I am thinking that, okay, this is just the way that the business has evolved now and that stuff in a certain direction, because again, I believe under the whole adage again, and send your hate tweets to me at Kellen Nitro. He doesn't have Twitter, so he won't be able to read them anyway. It's hashtag wrestling is wrestling. I mean, that's, whether it's deathmatch or Yoshi, it's wrestling to me, man. It's they're still telling the same stories with different ways of interpreting it and that stuff. I mean, if I show somebody who's a non-wrestling fan a normal match from AEW or a death match from CZW, they might get weirded out and run out of the room, or they might just say, okay, well, yeah, okay, that's wrestling, and then that's more wrestling, right? That's just a more violent way of wrestling, so.
But my thing is, when you're going to promote your style of pro wrestling as this is the sport of professional wrestling, this is not the art of sports entertainment, then you have to keep it on. You have to have some kind of guideline. Yeah. You have to have some kind of realism.
I mean, I see where that's coming from too, and that's the knock that a lot of old school fans have with AEW right now at the points. I mean, like, listen to Cornette's podcast. He's ripped apart every single thing that they've done so far. And he's also ripped apart a lot of things that WWE has done too. Like, he is no,
and he always will.
He's no WWE loyalist, that's for sure. I mean, he hates people on that AEW side, but he also likes a few people over there too. But he also hates a lot of people that are on the WWE side too. So, I mean, like, it's well documented that the guy that runs TV for them and Jim Cornette have butted heads several times before in the past, right? So, so
yeah.
It's...
So then, after the Hangman Page against Pac match, which to me slowed it down because he needed to fill time. What came after that?
I'm trying to remember off the top of my memory now. It was did they move right into the main event segment? I think they did, with Santana, Ortiz, and Jericho versus the Elite with Bucks and Omega.
So again, this is now my introduction to a lot of things. One, I know who LAX is. I don't know who they are when they don't have that name. So I'm just kind of like, who are these guys?
There's a reason for that. It's the same reason why Matt Hardy couldn't use the broken gimmick for a while. It's a legal battle with Impact right now.
Okay, but that really hurt that tag team, because I know of LAX. I don't know these guys by their single names.
Yeah. They're able, just kind of like, for whatever reason, they're able to use Santana and Ortiz, which are the two names that they used in Impact, but they just can't use LAX because that's an Impact trademark thing. And I think it's weird because it's like, well, they want to hold on to it so Conan has another couple of Latino guys dressed up in, gangsta gear to be LAX version 3.0 maybe or something, because this was don't forget, these guys were a retread of the original LAX of Homicide and Hernandez, right? So there we go.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, this was they just didn't put the new LAX in front of these guys. They're just LAX, right? So,
but that being said, it's like, if it was LAX and Jericho versus the Young Bucks and Omega, I kind of know who these people are, and I kind of understand why it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But when you take off the LAX name, I'm just kind of like, okay, who are these Uso but Latino-looking dudes with Jericho? Like, it really killed that tag team a little bit.
Right, but it was explained at the end of the show who they were. They were guys that are buddied with Jericho in this new faction that he's got. Whether it's called Alpha Club or whatever, the name doesn't mean anything. It's just what you're going to call them in a singular thing. But it explains why they were a mystery partner. That's the thing, is that they were a mystery. It was going to be the Elite versus Jericho and two guys, and it was going to be a mystery thing. And on the internet, scuttlebutt leading into the October 2nd show, all throughout August and September was, okay, who is it going to be? Actually, before All Out, it was who is going to be in that, because that main event for that first TV, I think, was announced in like July or something like that. They did a ton of pre-stuff online about it and everything for that main event, and it was explained that it was going to be a brand new tag team coming to AEW that was going to be Jericho's people, right, to come with them. And so listen to this list. This is just a list off the top of my mind of people that were by credible sources, listed as the rumored tag partners of Jericho for this main event. Okay, Rock and Roll Express was one. I kid you not. This was talk because they had the big showing at the NWA Ring of Honor card earlier in the year. But there we go, right? So that was one.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that was far fetched. The Briscoe brothers from Ring of Honor was another group that was listed. Mark and Jay
Would have been good.
Would have been really good. But I think their exclusivity was going to be an issue. The third team there, Santana and Ortiz were listed as well, because they were looking at getting out of their Impact contract, and so they were kind of looking at where they were going to go and that stuff and everything like that. And so it was kind of like that was it. And then when they interfered at the end of the Bucks match at All Out, after the ladder match wrapped up and that stuff, and they jumped the Bucks in the ring, it was, revealed to be Santana and Ortiz, and then everybody just put two and two together, and then like a week later it was announced that, oh yeah, it's going to be Santana and Ortiz as those guys coming in. That's it. So and I think PCO and Brody King were listed as well too, but I think that was more people's ideas of Marty Scurll getting out of his Ring of Honor contract and bringing Villain Enterprises in as that too and everything. But I mean that's some of the names. But the Rock and Roll Express thing makes me laugh every single time. I remember hearing it and that stuff. I was like, are we really considering that? Like All Elite Wrestling, where we're bringing in all of Turner's old guys, including Turner's old tag team from the 80s.
It made me laugh because it's like now you just open the door to any tag team that ever existed, no matter how good or bad they were.
So
it was Deuce and Domino.
Exactly. Right?
It could be Mo and Mabel.
Well, I think they're both dead, so I think it's like anybody who had.
Are they really?
I believe so. I think Mo and
Mabel?
Yeah.
Men on a Mission?
Yeah, I know Mabel's dead.
Oh, wow, that's sad.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, having that door open to any tag team, after you put Rock and Roll, like, wow, that's funny. But let's go. Let's go to this Elite versus the Sword of LAX against Jericho.
Yeah.
Again, this is my debut into seeing the Elite. I've seen Mega do his matches in Japan.
If you're comparing main events, yes, I'll give you the fact that NXT had the bigger main event than Ring of Honor for that, because NXT had the tangible titles on the line, between Street Profits and Undisputed Era, and that's a match that a lot of people wanted to see a rematch of anyway since the last takeover anyway. So that's a match that's big money right there, and that was going head to head with what was being presented as kind of like the first main event, the six man, right? So I'll give you that. Now for us up here in Canada, that this argument all is completely moot. I'll just preface this right now by saying that we get NXT earliest Thursdays, latest Fridays up here.
Right.
And we get AEW live as it happens. As it stands right now. So.
That is correct.
Yeah. Full disclosure.
Yes. But man, that match with the Elite against Jericho, the thing is, okay, Jericho looks amazing. He looks like an actual wrestler. He looks like that's Chris Jericho. That's cool. That's awesome. I don't get it. I don't get the Young Bucks, and I don't get Kenny Omega. It's like the New Day, but not as fun. I don't get it. I really don't understand the hype in Kenny Omega.
You just brought up something there. Have you seen the Mortal Kombat feud that they had at I think it was C2E2 last year in Florida between the New Day and the Elite?
Yes, the little Street Fighter tournament.
Yeah, the Street Fighter tournament. That's what it was. Yeah.
See, that was good.
So that was good.
But the New Day held it down. Like they were the way more entertaining group out of those guys. But that being said,
Omega tried in that one. I mean, like he was as entertaining as a fall guy as there could be in that. But that was, I think standout performances in that. I'd give the nod. individually to Omega over Xavier Woods, but Big E was as over the top as Big E is any time anyway. So.
He's amazing.
So,
Kenny Omega, I just don't get it. He points everywhere. Like, what is with the pointing? What is with the hand gestures? What is with the jazz hands? The all-wear psych-ups? I don't get it. Why is he, like, everyone's saying, like, you got to see Kenny Omega. He's the greatest. He's this and he's that. And I look at him like, this guy's a goof.
What did you think of the brawl between him and Moxley?
I was confused. Why is there a VIP section so far away from the ring that it wouldn't be advantage to be a VIP?
Yes.
And then they go through like a sugar glass table. And I'm like, okay, here's the thing. Moxley came into the ring behind Omega, and Omega plays the whole, oh, what's behind me? What's going to happen? He turns around and he gets clocked. Guess who's standing right next to him? A referee! Is this not a DQ?
It should have been, yes. There we go. I mean, you got it there. I mean, like, I think I mentioned in the two videos and that stuff that NXT had the stronger main event, but here is the logic off of this, and this is just a big summarization of everything here, is that the point that I was trying to make across last week is that everybody wanted to see the shiny new toy. No matter how awesome your current toys are, you wanted to see the shiny new toy because your buddy brought over the shiny new toy. That's what AEW was last week, is the shiny new toy. And that's why they got the 1.4 rating versus the 800,000.
Yeah, and I would agree about the whole shiny new toy. But the thing for me is, when I saw the shiny new toy, with all things considered, I was like, yeah. It's totally I looked at the shiny new toy like a new Samsung phone. Like, this is it? Really? This was supposed to take out the iPhone?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that the 1.4 million who watched AEW, not all of them gave the thumbs up or thumbs, not all of them were thumbs up and not all of them were thumbs down either. I mean, like, that's, like...
Yeah, that'll be a very interesting test to see next week.
Yeah, like, ratings don't gauge whether you're satisfied with a program and that stuff. It just tells people that, hey, these people watch this program.
Yeah, and I want to see what happens next week to see what the ratings do, to see did they retain people or did they get more people?
Well, the big thing that they're going to do this week is Jericho is going to cut a promo explaining what the name of the new faction is and why Jake Hager came back and everything and the whole deal, right?
Oh, yes, that's right. It came back with Mr. Not Swagger.
Yeah.
And Sammy Guevara and him and
Santana and Ortiz. Yeah.
That is a very, very strange faction.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, you can kind of see if they're trying to go for that, like, doing a faction for faction thing, you got, Undisputed Era over on NXT, which is kind of a group that you would kind of associate with each other because of their past. Mm-hmm. Versus, there's maybe, like, just Hager and Jericho I would associate with each other because, they were in WWE together. That's it.
They had no programs together. I don't even know if they ever crossed.
I think they were on different brands the entire time that they were together.
Yeah, because Swagger was an ECW champion and Jericho was gone for a bit, and I don't think they never had anything to do with each other.
So, I don't know.
And Sammy Guevara was probably in grade 2.
Okay, well, you've done enough to kind of convince me to see the other side of the thing and that stuff, but I still think that it was my favorite show of the week last week and everything like that. And I thought that NXT was kind of meh. So it was I guess all
and that's
the
my thing is so. It is, and that was my thing is that NXT, it gave me what I wanted, which was a lot of great wrestling, some great presentation. Mostly everything made sense, and I just enjoyed watching wrestling. Yeah. And AEW, it gave me a bunch of promises of things that they were going to do, and then did a bunch of things to counteract that confused me beyond belief.
I remember now what they got planned for AEW this week. Right. Okay, so in addition to Jericho coming out and doing that. They're kicking off the tag team title tournament with, again, Lucha Brothers versus SoCal Uncensored. That was what that whole promo was and everything like that. That's going to be the opening match of the tag team tournament. I don't know where that will be in a thing. The main event, I believe it's supposed to be Moxley versus Shawn Spears.
Really?
Yes. I think
Mr. 1010 wasn't on the debut episode.
No, but he just came off of a big high profile match at All Out with Cody.
Yeah, but then they didn't have him on the TV debut. That's bizarre.
Yeah. That's another thing too, is that I don't think they had a lot of their big stars on the debut show too. That they only have 2 hours, but I mean, like, that still, it was just kind of off that one. That was it. So.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess you can only do so much.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to remember where it is this week. I think it is Pittsburgh, I believe. I think they're in Pittsburgh.
Oh, that'll be good.
Yeah, they'll get a good crowd. I'm sure somebody commenting down there will be like, yeah, no, this is wrong. So I'm working off the top of my mind here, guys. So that's, I can't find any information anywhere. So, oh no,
it is fine. I forgive you. The internet wrestling community is so forgiveful. In fact, I mispronounced that word just to piss them off. Just kidding.
Oh man. Well, no, this has been a really good discussion. This is very interesting to see somebody's take on it and that stuff and everything. So just to recap from the beginning of the video, you had SmackDown as your favorite, and then Raw was your least favorite of the debuts from last week, of the season premieres and everything like that. And I had Dynamite as my favorite and Raw as my least favorite. So at least we're in agreement there. Raw was terrible. So.
Yeah,
it was very bad. Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
That was pathetic.
Yeah.
But SmackDown did a great job.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
AEW, for as much as I didn't quite get it the way that a lot of people got it, AEW at least was a confident show.
Yeah. What do they need to do going forward that you'd like to see to get them to sway favor with you a little bit? What if you had to give them like 3 or 4 bullet points? What would you like to see?
Take it seriously.
Okay.
It's like if you're going to say this is the sport of pro wrestling, show me the sport. Don't have a bunch of goofballs come in the ring and do a whole bunch of nonsense that doesn't make any sense and tell me that the wins and losses matter. Take it seriously. If you're going to be a serious wrestling show, be serious.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. NXT, I'd like to see them move out of Full Sail and get into a slightly larger building and maybe tour that brand around. The problem is that the show, that's one of the advantages that AEW had over NXT, in my opinion, is it looked like it was a big league show on AEW, whereas you started watching NXT and the cube that they built at Full Sail and the crowd and it being kind of intimate and small, I thought really hurt the presentation a little bit of NXT. So I'd like to see them run, maybe like the smaller arenas around the United States, like the minor league hockey arenas and that stuff, and just smaller areas, If they got to run a couple minor league baseball parks, maybe even do that. That would give a cool look to it.
My whole thing is I don't understand what they're going to do with NXT, because now that you've made it a show on USA, is it still developmental?
Yeah, it's not really a developmental brand now, is it? It's kind of just the third brand.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. I'm like, what are they going to do with NXT? So maybe they are going to move out of Full Sail. I want to call it wholesale for some reason.
Wholesale.
I went to Costco today. I did some bulk shopping today. That's why. Nice. But anyways, but I don't know what they're going to do. Are they going to tour them? Is it really a third brand? Are they really developing people? Finn Balor going back there, I think, is kind of a step down for him.
They're going to have to, get over that whole thing where sending guys back down to NXT is a demotion.
Because that's what it felt like. He went from the very first Universal Champion to never getting it back, to never getting a shot back, to now he's back in NXT.
Right.
And I kind of felt bad for him instead of feeling like, oh man, Finn Balor's back in NXT. It's like, oh no, he's back in NXT.
Yeah, exactly.
It was deflating.
Yeah. So, that's a big thing though. But I mean, like, that's presentation-wise. That's going to be the big thing for him. Again, presentation-wise, because heck, AEW's got, the roster of arenas that they've picked are kind of mid-level, arenas that, where WWE will roll into town and get exclusivity over an arena and that stuff. Like, we'll take Edmonton for example here. WWE has exclusivity over Rogers Place and any wrestling events that happen at Rogers Place, right?
Okay.
So AEW, if they were to ever come to Edmonton and do a show, and that's a pipe dream, but let's use this as an example, would be looking at Convention Center, maybe the Expo Center, something like that.
I was going to say Expo Center because they did that for the Stingers, and it would be perfect. It's the same arena look.
About 6 foul that arena sits.
Yep.
With seats and everything, and you could easily haul in your stuff and haul out your stuff, and so that's it. And even if they decided to go to the convention center, you could set it up to seat about 4,500, 5,000 if you wanted to in that big hall in the convention center. So that's what I mean, is that they'll be going for the smaller venues that sit about 5,000 or 6,000 people in each city to start until they get that. How they landed the Capital One Center, I want to call it Verizon Center, but how they landed Capital One Center, I have no idea, because I thought that WWE had exclusivity to that building too, because WWE has run shows there. So I'm not sure exactly how they landed that, but they did something. So maybe it was Tony Khan.
It could be, or it could just be like some places don't have exclusivity deals. They're just like, we have one arena in our city, and it has to be open to everybody. It's possible.
It is possible. So, dude, this was a great discussion. I enjoyed this immensely.
Yeah, man. It was good to talk wrestling.
It is great to talk wrestling. I'm Kellen Nitro. Later days, happy wrestling watching. Subscribe at tinyurl.com/NitroManiac TV. And check me out online at Twitter. And Tyler is a guy who will float in and out at this point. You can spot him on the streets.
Yeah, you find me on the streets.
Find him on the streets.
With the Usos.
In the Uso Penitentiary.
That's right. Got this on lockdown. We're going to get sued, aren't we?
It's YouTube. I'll just claim, the old... what's the old thing that everybody used to? Fair use.
Fair use and a parody. There we go.
Fair use. I'll just claim fair use. YouTube, you've been warned. This is fair use. All right. Later, guys.